Welcome to the Selling to Corporate podcast, where we're going to be challenging your sales beliefs around selling to corporate organizations and help you increase your bottom line profits every single month. I am Jessica Lorimer, your sales expert and guide in this world of selling to corporate companies, skyrocketing your company sales and making the impact that you really want in the world. Now, don't forget, if you do enjoy the show today, please do head over to iTunes and leave us a review. But enjoy this episode, and I am really looking forward to sharing some epic sales wisdom with you. It's May, it's sunny, even in North Yorkshire, and I am excited because this is, for me, I don't know about you guys, but this is my sales quarter of the year where I know that holiday is coming. So for me, I'm like, great, let's get all of these corporate clients signed and over the line by the end of the second week in July. And that means that then I can take the entire summer off, chill out, go to the allotment, and, do all the other things that I'm planning on doing with my summer, which, just as an FYI, not a massive amount. I will be reading, hopefully in the sunshine, traveling around North Yorkshire and just generally loving life. I don't have any big travel plans this summer. As some of you know, my husband's in the army, so we're kind of a little restricted right now on whether or not we will be able to go away this summer. But winter holidays, they'll be on the horizon. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. But we are in May, and it is a really, really important time to get a grip of our B2B sales processes. And if you've listened to episodes over the last few weeks, you will know that I have been very, very transparent about where I sit on the particular side of the fence that is not having a strategic sales process this quarter, or really for the next 6 to 12 months. So if you haven't gone back and listened to the episode that I put out just a couple of weeks ago called State of the Union, Super Sales Insights to Smash Your Targets, please do go and give that a listen. It is actually one of the longest episodes I've ever recorded at over an hour long. So 1 hour and 2 minutes for those of you who want precise timings. But it's really, really important. It will give you a really good grounding into understanding exactly what is going on in the 2025 market. So if you haven't listened to it and you're thinking, but Jess, this is your newest ep, I just want to dive in, go back. Honestly, I promise you it will be so worth it. I will also say it's probably one of the episodes I've had the most emails about, which is interesting. Not all of those emails were from happy, smiley people who were like, oh my goodness, Jess, you're making such amazing predictions. And it sounds like it's going to be a super easy market for me for the rest of 2025. So listen at your leisure, take the lessons in there, and be strategic about the way that you implement as a result of that episode. I promise you, it is worth the time to listen to, and it's actually really worth the objectivity to listen to it as well. So, without further ado, today's episode, we're diving into the sales activities that you are completely wasting your time on. And that is not because I want to make you feel bad in any way about any of the sales activities that you're currently doing in your business, but because there is actually a big miscommunication in the market at the moment about the difference between sales activities that work and sales activities that don't, and also what sales activities actually are. And I'm seeing this across the board. So if you're listening to this episode and you're like, but Jess, I already make 100K plus per year from corporate clients, so of course I know what a sales activity is, you still need to be listening to this episode, because as the market becomes a little bit more competitive and feels a little bit more challenging, what happens is that we see people make some interesting choices about the way that they decide to run their business. And that manifests itself in things like underpricing and undercharging, lower or less structured approaches to their sales scope and boundaries. It also leads to this weird kind of reliance on content creation and spending lots and lots of time trying to justify your worth either through content or on sales calls to people who actually need you to be a lot more objective and detached about the process and focused on their transformation rather than all of your qualifications and certifications and everything else that you might be showcasing right now. Okay. So if you are somebody who has been thinking, especially after the last episode of the Selling to Corporate podcast, actually, I am seeing a revenue dip this year, or I am seeing my revenue plateau, you need to listen to this episode and get super honest with yourself about whether you're spending time on some of the wrong activities and whether you need to realign that. And you also need to think about what you want to do in order to change it. Because at the point that we go live with this episode in May, you are only going to have 10 weeks to close the deals that you want to before summer hits. And I say to my clients inside the C-suite all of the time, summer is when people are at the office. It doesn't mean that you won't sign any deals. In fact, we had a great case study episode with Ngozi Weller, who came onto the podcast a little while ago. And, she actually had one of her highest ever sales months in July as a result of using the proven strategies and techniques and templates that we have inside the C-suite. But for most people, particularly the uninitiated, we will see revenue dips over the summer. And for me, even, I say this as somebody who doesn't work over the summer, I will see a revenue dip because guess what? I won't be selling anything. I'll be closing everything off before the end of that second week of July and then chilling out until September. And it's going to be absolutely glorious. So if that's what you want to do, then I actually do have something very exciting coming up. You can join the waitlist for my brand new live sales experience, which is designed to help coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers, and done-for-you service providers create a set and forget B2B sales strategy that is going to land you brand new corporate clients in 90 days or less. So if you are somebody who has been sitting on the fence, maybe the C-suite has been a big idea for you, something that you think you want to invest in the future, but you're not quite ready yet, and you want to build out a sales process with my live support, then you need to get onto the cold to closed waitlist. The link obviously is in the show notes, but you can also go to smartleadersell.vipmembervault.com/cold-closed. So that's smartleadersell.vipmembervault.com/cold to closed. And that's where you can get onto the waitlist to hear all about this brand new live experience that I'm running. Now, if you do that, and if you're somebody who's been checking out the C-suite for a while and you're thinking, oh, what should I join the waitlist if I'm interested in the C-suite? Actually, we did something pretty exciting and innovative for me. At the end of April, we made the C-suite referral only. So we've actually closed that for this year. It will be referral only moving forward. So don't worry. If you didn't join, drop us an email. We can make sure that we let you know about anything else that might be happening. But basically, get yourself on the cold to closed waitlist. That is the best thing that you can possibly do for yourself, for your business this year. And that will be the only live sales experience that I will be running outside of the C-Suite 2025. All right. So before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, I want to talk about why I'm putting this episode forward. And like I said in the beginning, this is not to diminish the work and often really, really hard work that people are putting into running their own coaching, consulting, training, speaking, or done-for-you service business. It really isn't. It's actually because, there are three main reasons that I wanted to record this episode at this particular point in the year. One of them is that I'm seeing lots and lots of people freak out about the state of business in general, and also freak out about their own businesses. It's interesting because I think that there's this weird, I don't really know what to call it, but I think there's this weird expectation in sort of December, January, that everything's going to be fine because the new year is happening. And so people always tell me in December and January, when they've got that a bit of renewed energy, and they're like, actually, Jess, I've got this pipeline and everything's amazing and I'm going to go into the new year strong. So I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm not going to make any changes right now. I'm just going to focus on what the new energy and the new year and everybody else's renewed energy is going to bring. And I'm always like, you know what? That's cool. Fine. See how that goes. And some years, I think particularly 2021, 2022, when everybody was in that post being locked down high, actually some people had really profitable and really good quarter ones. This year and last year have been quite different. People were looking for that sense of renewed energy, reinvigoration, excitement, and it didn't come. And we got into April, the second quarter of the year and the new financial year for most organizations, and it still wasn't there. That renewed energy, that reinvigoration, that refreshed, recharged attitude to sales in general wasn't there because people were already freaking out that their pipelines were lower than normal. They were freaking out that they were losing sales instead of winning business. And that is very, very difficult. So this episode is designed to just help you understand a little bit about why certain things might be happening in your business. So why you might be seeing revenue plateau or dip. And also to address the fact that this is not the time to be freaking out, and I'll go through some of the reasons why from a commercial perspective and, what you can do differently. Okay. So that you can avoid freaking out and actually do things that are going to stabilize your revenue and help you to create predictable revenue. The second reason is that I'm hearing a lot of myths about the B2B market and specifically what it takes to sell to corporates. Now, I will caveat this with a lot of these myths are coming from people who don't actually sell to corporates. So I'm not going to waste tons of time and energy on it, but I will say that, I'm hearing things come back or make the rounds in social media posts. And I'm hearing from people that I'm speaking to about programs and things that they're saying, but I've been told that it takes ages or that corporates aren't buying right now, or haven't you seen the press, Jess? Everyone's talking about how companies are laying people off and it's going to be a nightmare. Or I've heard that it's easier to sell to individuals and I'm going to keep plugging away on the ground. Now, like I say, most of these myths are perpetuated by people who don't sell to corporates and certainly people who don't come from that kind of corporate sales background. And most importantly, people who don't sell consistently to corporates. So, we have to understand where these myths come from. One, usually unfounded because they're not from people who are actively and consistently selling to corporates. And two, we also have to understand the reasoning behind that. And that is usually, if we start saying to people that they should sell to corporates, maybe they won't be buying the incredible amount of digital downloads and products that are available right now. And that would scupper certain revenue strategies. Okay, so we're going to spend a little bit of time today just thinking about what is actually reality, what the statistics that I shared in my last episode, the State of the Union episode, show, and what you need to be doing in order to take control of your revenue and pipeline. And then the final reason that I'm recording this episode today is because I'm seeing lots of people get confused about what corporate sales activities actually are. So people are, in a very, very well-intentioned and well-meaning way, spending lots and lots of time on activities that maybe they've thought are going to produce great results. Maybe they've been told work and will produce great results. Maybe that they've just been seeing other people do and assuming that they work. And actually, those activities are not benefiting them. And they're wasting their time because they're spending lots of time and energy on activities that weren't ever designed to produce the result that they want. So essentially, if your aim this year is to avoid the noise, to avoid being upset about what everybody else is telling you about the market, and to take clear control of your B2B sales pipeline and generate my personal thing in business, cash and joy, then this is absolutely the episode for you. It's what you want to be listening to and using as your North Star for the rest of this year. Because it is getting noisy and it is getting competitive and people are perpetuating certain stories and myths and things that they are seeing because it makes them feel good about the fact that they are normalizing business problems. You do not have to do that. You can take control of your B2B sales pipeline anytime that you want. You can create something that is totally predictable, totally stable, and that outlies and outlasts the current economic landscape. Okay, so if you're into that, keep listening. If you're not, that's okay. I also don't have anything else that I can do if you're not into that. So might be time to switch episodes. So let's start out with what a corporate actually is then. I'm aware that recently I've delivered lots and lots of really interesting training sessions and talks. And so we have newer listeners to the Selling to Corporate podcast. So if this is the first time that you've listened, yay, welcome. But I'm also conscious that that means that sometimes people don't actually understand my definition of what a corporate is. Okay, so when you actually look up the definition for what is a corporate, it very helpfully tells you that a corporate is a company with a few or more employees. In my mind, that's actually the least helpful definition that anyone could have possibly created. So the way that I define a corporate and the way that it's defined for the purpose of the Selling to Corporate podcast is a company that is not founder run, so is not a solopreneur like me or you, who is running our own business in complete control, have no other stakeholders to kind of give us external decision making or to report to. It is an organization that has permanent employees that are employed to do different tasks. It is an organization that has a board or reporting structure. So that might be shareholders, it might be a board, it might be a public sector organization that is led by government guidelines, but they have to have external accountability of some kind or a higher accountability of some kind. And they can be in any industry. So this can be in the private sector, things like retail, pharmaceutical, insurance, financial services, private healthcare, and they can be in the public sector. Okay, so educational environments, social housing, charities or not-for-profits, public sector, government organizations or departments, councils, all of that kind of thing. So that's what I'm defining as a corporate. Essentially, it is an organization that is not led by a solopreneur and that it has higher levels of accountability with some kind of board or C-suite that drive strategic vision and accountability for vision, values, and results. All right. If you have that, then you are looking to work with corporate clients. If you are somebody who wants to work with solo business owners who typically work on their own or who hire freelancers, then you are not looking to work B2B in my definition of B2B and what the Selling to Corporate podcast is about. All right. So hopefully that makes it super, super clear for everybody. Now, in terms of activities, I'm going to get into the activities in a second that are not helping you build that stable sales pipeline. Okay. And the reason I'm going to get into the activities in a second is not because I'm putting it off, but because I think it's actually more important to understand why we're spending our time and energy on the things that are not supporting our business growth instead of the things that are. And again, I work with really, really intelligent people. I spend all of my days working with really intelligent people. And actually, there are two problems with being an intelligent person who wants to make sales for their own business, particularly selling to corporate. One is because intelligent people are able to overthink to the nth degree. So instead of looking at the simplest way to solve a problem, they will look at how they can make it more complicated. I say I include myself in this. I tell everybody that I'm recovering eternally from perfectionism. But intelligent people, we have this innate and in certain situations, wonderful ability to overthink and extrapolate information and create very complicated answers, which doesn't always align itself with sales, because sales is about creating simple, repeatable processes that you can actually measure and therefore troubleshoot much easier. And the second reason that intelligent people find it more difficult to do B2B sales is because they are used to being able to figure out everything themselves. So, intelligent people, and again, I include myself in this, when I was younger, I was that straight A, always had my hand up because I knew the answer type of teenager, read voraciously, read way above my age range, was, embarrassingly perhaps, was the kid who did not only the science fair, but was on like the poetry team and I was involved in debate and all this kind of stuff. I was in no way cool, which I don't think should surprise anybody, but sometimes does. I was not cool at all, but I loved to learn. And intelligent people do. We love to learn. It means that we can often procrastinate on action. And it also means that we have this innate ability to think, well, we can just read around the topic. And if you are somebody who does this, you will recognize it, because I could probably ask you any question about sales and you would tell me that you know the answer. I hear it a lot in my clients. We actually did a C-suite day on Monday. It was amazing, all focused around consultative sales skills. And one of the interesting points that I made was I asked people on our monthly C-suite hot seat calls what activities they need to do, and they'll give me all the right answers. I will ask people, what they should be saying in certain situations like negotiation or objection handling or whatever, and they'll tell me exactly what they'll say. But the biggest thing I notice is that whilst intelligent people know the answer, they know the theory behind something, very often they are not doing the implementation part of it. So while somebody can say, Jess, I know exactly what I need to say to handle an objection around price, when they get onto that sales call and they're in the moment, they're not doing that. Right? Now, this is not a failing. Okay. And it is not me saying, yeah, so all of you just, you know all this stuff because you're smart, but look at you not doing any of it. I'm saying this because it's so normal. This is what we see all of the time. I see it in the entrepreneurial space. I see it in the particularly the sales management, sales directorship space, where we overcompensate with what we think we know or what we know, and we forget to do. And it's one of the reasons that I believe that we have this huge issue right now with lots of people who think that they know what they're doing, who are lacking in the implementation part that would actually give them the data to show whether what they think they know works and how to troubleshoot, their own sales process. And that's why people are falling into these behaviors or activities that actually aren't serving their sales process, because they're focused on consuming more, learning more, rather than doing and getting data and proving concept, right? So again, this is not because you're not intelligent. It's very much because you are intelligent. I know, it's a blessing and a curse. The other thing that leads into this situation where, we're focused on activities that we think should work and don't, or that we tell ourselves are sales activities and actually maybe aren't, is because we're taught to, right? I don't know about you. I've been in the online space for a very, very long time. And I was actually on a call with somebody yesterday that I met at an event I'd spoken at recently. And they were talking to me about the B2C market. And they said, you're somebody who's worked both B2B and B2C. And I was very honest with them, just like I am with you, and said, yeah, but my B2B will always make more. Like always. And they said, do you ever get frustrated? Because I've come into the market, I'm somebody who's really, really good at what I do. I'm certified beyond belief. I have, incredible experience working with huge brands in the market that I wouldn't be able to work with if I didn't have the qualifications, the experience, the kind of capital in terms of results and delivery. And I've come into the online space, and it's like pulling teeth to try and get an individual as a client. And they said, do you ever get frustrated because you're not the world's biggest marketer in terms of saying, oh, here are all the revenue claims that I could make. Here are all the, things that I can push out to show that I'm living the inspirational lifestyle and that I'm doing all of the things that should attract people to buying from me. And I was like, yeah, 100%. Frustrates the crap out of me. And it has done since 2014. However, what I said to them is exactly what I'm going to say to you. My interest is not in what I do or my life as a sales tool. My interest is in the results that my clients get, and always has been. And that does mean that I'm not the sexiest marketer on the planet. I know. You're probably listening to that being like, but Jess, are you kidding me? I think you do marketing. Yeah, that by the way is me being sarcastic, just in case you're not picking up on it. We all know that, inspirational marketing, not my jam, and I'm okay with it. And it actually means that I get far fewer B2C clients than if I said, hey, this weekend I'm going to buy myself a Rolex and talk about all the properties that I own and all that kind of thing. I could get tons more B2C clients if I did that. But I don't, because it's pointless, because obviously I could sell things. I'm really good at it. I've spent 18 years doing it. I'm very experienced. That shouldn't be the thing that attracts us to buy from somebody, what they personally are doing. What should attract us to buy from companies, people, etc., is the results that they get people like us. So in your case, listening to this podcast, should you be buying from somebody who has super sexy marketing about all of the Hermes bags that they're buying, just because they say that they've got an Hermes bag and can sell to corporate or whatever? No, absolutely not. But will you? Maybe. Or have you? Maybe. Because we all do it, right? We're taught to market. We're taught that marketing is our key focus to get this big volume, big audience build. And actually, if you're selling B2C, you need a big audience build. You need volume. But if you want cash, sales, we should not be playing the audience game. We should be playing the conversion game. And that's where people struggle, particularly B2B, because all of the things that we are taught about marketing and the way that we're taught to market, particularly if you have been following the online business education space, doesn't actually work for B2B. Okay? I'm going to go into some of those activities, like I say, in a second, but they don't work for B2B. And I can say that very safely because I am somebody who's taught over 20,000 people how to successfully sell B2B. I have a over 90% success rate in the market, which is pretty much unheard of. And because I work with some of the world's biggest brand and I know what their marketing teams are trying to achieve. And do you know what they're not spending their time on? Trying to market to other companies. Even organizations that have large sponsorship departments, partnership departments that are actively selling business to business, they are not having huge inflated marketing teams or marketing spend. The companies that spend lots of money on marketing are the ones who are marketing to consumers and therefore need exactly the same thing that you need if you were going to sell B2C. Huge amounts of paid traffic, funnels, to be top of mind all the time, to be in everybody's face all of the time. But selling B2B, absolutely not. They're focused on sales, conversion. Activities are actually going to make that happen. Okay. And when we are taught all the time about the importance of marketing over sales, especially for corporates, what happens is we lack focus on selling. So it means that we often see revenue dips, revenue plateaus, or no revenue being generated. And it also means that we might get new followers on LinkedIn and feel quite good about that, or new connections on LinkedIn, or people following us on a social media platform. But that comes at a cost. It comes at the cost often of getting ghosted by those new followers, particularly in the B2B space, because they're not proactively messaging you on LinkedIn to be like, hey, I saw your recent post. That looks awesome. Do you want to come and do some work for insert big brand here? It leads to people getting very frustrated and spending tons of time and energy on the content creation wheel. I hear about this all the time. People are like, Jess, I'm never off Instagram. I'm like, why are you on Instagram if you're selling to companies? Like, I don't know about you, but I worked a corporate job. And do you know what I wasn't doing on the tube home or, on the train back to visit my family at weekends or whatever? I wasn't consuming work-based content on social media platforms. I was doing what I'm doing now. I was watching cat videos, and actually we're about to buy our own house. So me and Owen are buying a house together. It feels very adult. Be our first one that we buy together and actually live in, which is very exciting. And all I'm doing is consuming like those weird, I say weird, wonderful actually, like DIY and house inspo videos. So if you see any of those, feel free, send them over. I'm obsessed with like learning how to paint a UPVC front door, which obviously I'll be incredibly bad at and then have to buy a new front door or something. But, I'm watching it and I'm imagining myself doing that. The point here is that people are not consuming work-based content after work. I would even hazard a guess that you are probably not consuming as much work-based content as you used to. Because people, especially after, COVID, are just done with digital interaction. They want real human beings and real discussions and to actually have conversations with people rather than just consume. And so, you might be feeling like you're spending suddenly 2-3 hours a week on content creation and wondering why corporates aren't buying. And it's like, well, they aren't going to buy. They're not doing it in that way. And you might also be in that space if you are focusing a lot on marketing and not on sales activities where you're feeling like it's harder to land corporate clients or it's taking longer. And this is really interesting for me because I hear it from clients that I've worked with for a very long time. And I'm very fortunate, actually. Somebody sent me a message the other day and they said, Jess, it's so refreshing because I see brand new faces in the rooms that you create and the communities you pull together. But I also see people who've been there since the beginning. And it's so refreshing to see somebody in the market that has that ongoing, lifelong relationship with clients. And I love that. It's actually something that I didn't used to talk about because I was like, oh, weird. But I love it because what usually happens is people work with me, they solve their initial sales problem, they go away, they do incredibly well, and then they realize that they want to progress. They want to make something more efficient, more effective. And so they come back because I helped them the first time, the second time, the 50th time. Right? So I see this with people who come back to me when they say, oh, Jess, I've been doing everything that I used to do when I was working with you, but it's taking longer to get clients. The market's changed. I'm not seeing it convert at the same rate that it used to. And actually, on analysing and troubleshooting their sales process, actually we find that they've strayed too far into this marketing piece. So perhaps they've been spending a long time building a personal brand on a social media platform instead of focusing on core sales activities that are going to make them money. Perhaps they've spent time writing a book and that's really taken out, and unknowingly, often in a lot of cases, it's taken time out of their sales process. They haven't made as much as they used to. It's maybe they've had to spend a lot of time on family and personal things that they didn't realize was actually eating into the sales activity they were doing. But because my clients are working on a metrics basis, it's very simple for us to look back and troubleshoot what's happened, where have things gone wrong, how to get them back really quickly on track. Whereas if you are not running a strategic, sustainable sales process, it can be really hard, because you don't always know what things have taken up the most time, but produced the least in terms of ROI. So, with all of that being said, let's have a look at the activities that you may be spending time on right now and expecting results from that actually are not going to get you the results that you want. Now, I'll be clear, I've only listed a few here, so I'll walk through the kind of short list, but you can extrapolate from this, again, as intelligent people, some of the other things that you might be spending time on, but actually aren't going to get you the result you want. And when I talk about the result that you want, I mean money. Okay, so let's be super, super clear about that. I mean sales, revenue, money, profit, not, are you getting 10,000 likes on a post and building your personal brand? Don't get me wrong, those can be really interesting, cool things to do as you go forward in your business journey. But for me, when I'm looking at the definition of sales success, it is cash. All right, so these are the activities you're spending time on that will not actually generate revenue for you and that you will want to replace with something that is focused on generating revenue. Okay, so things like posting on LinkedIn, especially if you are new at selling to corporates, posting on LinkedIn multiple times per day, 1 time per day, 5 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever it is not going to help you get corporate clients. Okay, One, I've never seen an HR manager that's scrolling the news feed thinking, oh gosh, yeah, I really need an executive coach, or oh gosh, yeah, I really need an operations consultant right now. Wow, here they are on the news feed. Let me go and get them immediately. Doesn't happen. All right. Most stakeholders are not using LinkedIn in the same way that you are. So they're not scrolling the news feed. They're using it to recruit, and they're using it to look for jobs. So if you're not doing either of those things, then posting on LinkedIn is completely arbitrary. You might get some likes, you might get some comments, you might get some trolling, whatever. But you are not going to get corporate clients posting on LinkedIn, especially if you're newer, because you don't even have a network then that is going to be relevant. All right. Commenting on decision makers' posts on LinkedIn. I've seen this a lot recently, along with my least favourite activity in the world, which is LinkedIn pods. I don't know who came up with the idea of LinkedIn pods where you sit with 20 other people and you all like each other's posts, but it is pointless. There are so many reasons that it's pointless. But the number one is that you are only getting people who are not ideal decision makers for you to like your stuff. So nobody who is an ideal decision maker is going to see it anyway. Like, it just gives you an ego boost and an algorithm that doesn't actually help you. So LinkedIn pods, my personal nemesis of 2025 and other years, but we're going to go with it here. And commenting on decision makers' posts, particularly if you're saying things like congratulations on your new job, or happy birthday, or I see some people trying to now pitch in the comments, which is not working perhaps as successfully as they thought it might. These things, again, they're not a good use of your time. They're not controllable activities. They are not measurable activities. It is very, very difficult to get any kind of ROI from them. Because again, if I go to, I don't know who's like a big brand on LinkedIn these days. So if I go onto a post from, I don't know, Google and one of their big decision makers, and I say, hey, congrats on the new job at Google. It's going to be so great watching the direction that you take the tech team in this year. I don't think they're going to read that comment at all. And I also don't think that they're going to read that comment and be like, wow, do you know what? Jess sounds really nice. I should message her and be like, do you know what? We probably need some sales help. Come and do this for us. I'd also like to point out at this point, for legal reasons, I'm not affiliated with Google in any way. That was just an example. But you know what it's like, right? So posting on LinkedIn, commenting on decision makers' LinkedIn posts, not going to help you build your sales process. They're not going to get a sales ROI. Again, if you were building a personal brand, maybe. If you're trying to get more followers on LinkedIn, I don't know, maybe that's a strategy these days, but not for sales. Other things that aren't going to be a good use of your time, okay? Creating any kind of funnel. So funnels, we see all of the time in the online space to sell to individuals. And the idea is that you put lots of volume, meaning big audience, in the top of your funnel, and through a series of webinars, newsletters, automated email sequences, etc., you whittle down to the small percentage of buyers. Usually 1 to 2% is the industry statistic. So if you have 1,000 people in your audience, you can expect 20 to buy. Any kind of funnel for corporates, not a good use of time. So I see a lot of people who are spending their time creating automated webinars. They say that they're going to get loads of leads from it and then they're going to be able to sell. It's honestly, it doesn't work for B2B. There are lots and lots of reasons behind that, so I'm not going to go into all of them today. But essentially, when we look at funnels, they have never converted effectively for B2B sales, mostly because your decision makers don't have the time, energy, or inclination to spend an hour on a webinar and then get a 7-day email sequence into their inbox. They will just unsubscribe and they won't buy from that. They also don't buy from generic sales pages. So, save yourself a ton of time, energy, and money. And then finally, thinking that freebies work. So I see loads of people who are spending lots of time on marketing freebies. So they'll spend lots of time on creating a white paper or creating a report or creating a quiz, survey, whatever else, and expect that that will sell for them. It doesn't. These can be used in part of your sales process, but most people are using them as a lead gen tool, and they don't attract that many leads because of the insane amount of time that it would take to promote all of those things effectively in the right places and get enough traffic to the top of your funnel. So they don't perform as well as proactive outreach in any way, shape, or form. And they actually take a lot longer to build. and usually require an upfront cost, around like a tech VA or a graphic designer or things like that end up costing you a lot of time, money, and energy as well. So any activities like the ones that I've just mentioned are, one, useful from a B2C standpoint. So they've been created in that market. They're designed to take individual consumers on a journey to want to buy. Like I say, that small percentage of 1% to 2%. They are not designed for B2B. They are not as effective in the B2B space, and they are going to involve a lot of time, energy, and usually original creativity on your part for very, very little return. Instead, what we want to be focusing on and should be focusing on are proactive approaches. Because you might be listening to this episode being like, oh God, but Jess, this all feels like very bad news. What if this is me? I'm spending all my time doing that. And I get it. And the good news is, like, if you are doing those things right now, you can stop. The world isn't going to end because you stop posting on LinkedIn. I know, because I do it all the time. And I've got more corporate clients than I can handle. But the good news genuinely is that my clients often come to me because they are struggling with the constant content creation, the constant LinkedIn posts, the, feeling like they have to be commenting and building a personal brand and creating offers before they've actually ever booked a sales call with a company and all these kinds of things. And they switch to a proactive approach. And even in this difficult market that we're hearing about all of the time, they are using the proven strategies that I teach. They're using the accountability involved in our programs, and they are using their own focused implementation of proven strategies that they're getting directly from me and proven templates that they're getting directly from me to create epic results. In fact, in April alone, we saw people celebrating their first 30K month. We saw people booking their first sales call with luxury brands from cold outreach. We saw people sending out 5 qualified proposals in a month and actually closing 4, which I think is a pretty good conversion rate. We saw people getting a 78% conversion rate from call to close. All right, so from that sales call with a cold lead to closing, 78% conversion rate. Okay, so yes, the market is changing. If you've listened to the State of the Union podcast episode, you'll know that the market is changing. But if you are prepared to put in action, focused strategic action, implementation, again, focused strategic implementation, and do the right things, you will get corporate clients. You will have a sustainable and scalable revenue stream with corporate clients. You will be able to relax over the summer and, probably have much more exciting plans than me, let's face it. But if you don't, and if you keep on this hamster wheel of, I'm going to do all of the things, I'm going to create loads of content, I'm going to build my personal brand, I'm going to go and, write a couple of books and think that those activities are designed to get you corporate clients, they are not. And I don't want you to be disappointed in that. So as long as you're going into whatever activities you're doing, eyes wide open, and you're like, no, Jess, it's fine. I don't want money. I want to build my personal brand this year. I want to write a book. Whatever your goals are, they're totally fine. I don't mind. You just need to know how they're going to work. And those things are not going to produce revenue results. They might produce other things that are more of a priority for you right now. But if you want cash, sustainable revenue, joy from doing work that you actually love and creates an impact, then you need proactive sales activities in your business, because otherwise you are going to be doing a lot of work, not seeing the return that you want, and you're going to think that that's because of the market or because of your pricing or because of, something else that's relatively arbitrary. And it isn't. It's because you're not doing the right activities for the goals that you actually want to hit. Okay. Now, if you do want to get on the cold close waitlist and start signing clients before the middle of July, then you need to head over to smartleadersell.vipmembervault.com/cold-closed. The link is in the show notes. Get yourself on the waitlist. It is the only live experience I'll be running this year outside of the C-suite, and it is going to be amazing. So if you want all the deets on that, then get yourself on the list. Because like I say, I'm not the marketer with the big, bold number claims and the Hermes or Birkins or whatever bags about myself, but I am the person who is getting my clients incredible results and has an incredible 90% plus success rate in this market. So if you are looking for a live B2B sales experience this year, this is the one to get on the waitlist for. I'll see you in the next episode.